Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Javier with the Real Javier Novoa channel, a network and a modality where we apply the principles of philosophy, spirituality, and mysticism to rapid lifestyle transformation. If you appreciate our channel, please subscribe and like. That helps us get the information out to more people, and we want to touch as many lives as possible. And the more watches we have, the more likes we have, and the more people subscribe, we can get the algorithm in our favor to enable us to get this information out to more people. So we really appreciate that. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, there was a topic that I was contemplating. I had a very profound meditation. And the topic came to me through the meditation, and I just contemplated it throughout. And that was the concept of discipline. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, discipline. In fact, it takes a tremendous amount of discipline to follow this methodology and to apply it to achieving everything that you want in your life. And how can I say that, especially when we continue emphasizing that there is no effort? Well, it takes discipline not to take effort. That's right. It takes discipline, first of all, and this is the main thing, to love yourself enough to give yourself the opportunity to even give this philosophy a try. Because many people do not think that they are important enough, or do not give themselves the importance that they need, because they don't think they're worthy of being able to pursue their desires for whatever reason. And we don't teach that you have to go and consciously clear that block, although you can, because worthiness is one of those blocks that it is actually worth the time and the pursuit to clear and to try to talk down or hypnotize down or affirmation down. And we'll teach these processes in many videos here to come in the future. But it's one of those key elements that it would be worth your while to do that. But you don't even have to do that if you contemplate it and if you simply give yourself to this modality and you give it a try. For example, try the process, especially if you're skeptical or you're on the fence. Suspend your disbelief and just try the process that we talk about here. The very simple processes of manifestation. And that is to figure out exactly what it is that you want, and to figure out a way to devise a state of that for yourself. That is, feel yourself surrounded by the entire complex of circumstances, sensations, beliefs, self-talk, and all of this, and just throughout different points in your day, put yourself into that state, and then do nothing unless you feel inspired to take some action. Start with something small, and you can do this to prove it to yourself. And doing that, by the way, will increase your sense of worthiness automatically, and you won't have to work on this belief. But that takes discipline. It's a very high amount of discipline. As we said, discipline is not effort. What discipline means from the perspective of our modality is the discipline to continue to return to the state that you desire to bring about, or the state of that which you desire to bring about in the physical, even when all of the signs and all of the evidence is pointing to the contrary. That takes discipline. It takes discipline to be a contrarian. And yet, if you study all of the fields known to man, from investment to science, it is only the contrarians who were able to make massive impacts in those disciplines, to cause paradigm shifts and changes, and to add new knowledge and practice to the corpus of humanity. So, you have to have discipline to be a contrarian. And in order to implement this methodology, You have to be a contrarian. So as we said, discipline is simply loving yourself enough and respecting yourself enough and valuing yourself enough to, as Joe Dispenza says, be more interested in your future than you are now, in the circumstances of the now. That's right. Of course, the only moment that exists is the present moment. But when we say future here, this is the arrangement of that present moment that you wish to bring about through your own free desire and your own free choosing. The other now, and that of the now of the man or woman of undisciplined focus, is that now which is simply driven by the outer world, by the prison grid, and by latest and loudest. And so your attention and your focus, which is your divine gift, and which is your specific tool as the kind of being that you are, is now hostage and controlled by other forces and other energies. You don't want that. You want to reclaim your focus. The only way to do that is to be disciplined. And how do we do it? I'm a coach in mental rehearsal, and to a certain extent, I'm a coach in focus. So how do we regain our focus, and how do we exercise this muscle? Well, we exercise it just like we'd exercise any other muscle. And that is by using it. And as a laser, we have to pick and choose those elements that we wish to focus on. And for the first few go-arounds of it, we have to make it something small and something that we deem to be insignificant. Just like if you want to start lifting weights and you've never lifted a weight before, you wouldn't start with a 300-pound bench press. You'd probably start with something a lot smaller. So we can train our discipline by setting ourselves small intentions to manifest, and then just simply applying the formula, and then turning off or suspending our judgment for a certain amount of time so that we can allow the universe to prove it to us. And it will prove it to us in a very short amount of time, in a very short order. The great Eliyahu Goldratt, who was the founder of Theory of Constraints, this is going into business here, but it all ties in together because there's no duality, and anyone who's been successful at anything, at least implicitly, knows these principles, ladies and gentlemen. Even though he doesn't consciously know them, he implicitly knows them and practices them, for he has to in order to have any modicum of success. Because, like we've said in other videos, the materialistic mode can only work for a very small gain, because basically you can move things around from this side to that side. You can move a certain amount of rocks around. You can control maybe a team of 3 or 4 people, even though that's very difficult. But once you get beyond simply a few elements, a few people, a few employees, you realize very quickly that you can no longer micromanage, and you have to let that go to a greater power in order to have the massive success that we talk about in this channel. So Eliyahu Goldratt, of course, knew these principles, the founder of Theory of Constraints. So he defined focus very precisely. He said that focus is knowing what to pay attention to and paying attention to the thing that needs to be paid attention to, and not paying attention to that which does not need to be paid attention to. I repeat again, paying attention to that which needs to be paid attention to, that means you select what to put your attention on, and then withdrawing attention or not paying attention to that which does not need to be paid attention to. And of course, in business, we figure out what we need to pay attention to utilizing the Pareto principle and some other principles like the theory of constraints, and finding out what is the constraint, what is that element of the business which is not meeting full demand, and then we focus on extending the capacity of that constraint and then tying all of the other elements in the business to that constraint. Because if you have a constraint, it doesn't really matter how much you increase the other elements, because they're stopping at the constraint. If you have an assembly line and there's one point at the end of that line where you can only say get one widget out, it doesn't matter if the other parts produce 20 widgets, because you can still only get one widget out in a certain amount of time at the front of that line. Therefore, you should tie the capacity of all of the other elements to that one constraint and then work on expanding the capacity of the constraint. I hope you follow me. And this does very much apply to the law of assumption and rapid lifestyle transformation in every element of your life. Why? Because first of all, we're dealing with the fact that the inner is not only, according to the Pareto principle, gets you 80% of the results, it gets you 100% of the results. So it behooves you to focus all of your attention on the inner. And oftentimes the constraint is the inner. And why is that? Because we've given the power of our focus away to the outer. And the outer, of course, cannot be changed, because it's like trying to change the reflection in the mirror instead of changing the face that's staring into the mirror. So it behooves you to focus the majority of your attention on the inner. And how do we do that? By continuing to get into our state, by continuing to mental rehearse that experience which we would experience if we were surrounded by the circumstances that we were to be surrounded with. Then everything will fall in line in accordance to that, and you'll be inspired to whatever actions you need to take, and things will just come to you. But you have to be disciplined enough to withdraw your attention again from the physical and put it on the inner, and put it on the spiritual. You have to be disciplined enough to exercise your focus. You have to be disciplined enough to, instead of seeking it, to be it, and to know you are it. That's how we apply discipline to rapid lifestyle transformation. So thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a lot of great videos coming up this week, especially training you in mental rehearsal and about the details, more details, of how to get off the prison grid, how to rapidly transform your life, and how to stop being beholden to a boss. So we really appreciate it, and I am doing coaching calls where I take you hand in hand through this methodology, and you can achieve in months what it took me years to achieve by learning this on my own. You don't have to do it on your own. I'm here to help you and to guide you along the way. So we will put our email in the description for those coaching calls. So until very soon, this is Javier. We'll see you tomorrow.